Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order. If we could all stand, face the flag, put your hand over your heart, and do the pledge of allegiance, please. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sonia, will you take roll call, please?
Commissioner Corbin,
Here.
Commissioner Wire,
Here.
Commissioner Digital,
Here.
Commissioner Shaw,
Here.
Mayor Denner.
Here. We have the agenda in front of us. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda, and then I would like to move personnel out of consent calendar and put it down as new business number 2.
Second. Any further comments or discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor, signify by aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Under appearances and acknowledgements, do I have a motion to acknowledge January 2022 board minutes?
So moved.
Second. Further comments or discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor, signify by aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I have motion to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
All in favor, signify by aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Move down into unfinished business. I will open up the hearing on the resolution number 2022-05, notice of intent to lease real property. Do I have anybody here that would like to speak on that? Not hearing any. I'm going to close the hearing. I'm going to move down into item number 2. Do I have a motion to adopt the resolution number 2022-05, notice of intent to lease real property?
So moved.
Second. Is there any further comments or discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Under new business, item number 1. Fred, you want to bring us up to speed on review and take action on request for proposal generator plant operation system update. April 8th, 2022 at 2 p.m.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of the commission, there's 2 items here tonight that we need to look at. The first one is a letter of justification for why we are going to sealed proposals rather than sealed bids. And in this case, when we deal with technology and new technology, emerging technology, it's hard to put into specifications absolutely everything that's available. And just like the AMI system, we feel it's in our best interest to have this as a sealed proposal rather than a sealed bid. So that's the first item of interest for us, is that this letter would be adopted by the commission, stating that the justification is that it's too difficult to put together the bids for all the different types of technologies that are out there that could be used at the gen plant. It's the same process we did, like I say, for the AMI project.
Do we need a motion and to go to this particular set of steel bids?
Yes.
Okay. Do I have a motion to request the seal bid request for proposal justification instead of going out for the bids?
So moved. Second.
Any further comments or discussion?
What was the timeline, Brad, or when you're looking?
Well, it'd be April and I was gonna get into that when I get into the advertisement part of this, but April 8th.
April 8th.
Yeah.
Any other questions or concerns?
Who has permission to see the sealed proposals then? Is that?
Generally, it's the evaluation team and only the evaluation team. That's pretty strict in state law where the proposals are not, all we do when we open them per se is we acknowledge who has sent them in. And that's it. The bidder, if you're the proposer, and that's it. We keep those separate. We don't open them up there. We don't tell anybody what's in them. And actually, state law goes on to say that we cannot discuss any particulars about any of the proposals with any of the other proposers. It has to be, we can negotiate one-on-one with them and try to get the best deal for the city of Madison, but we cannot give up any information from one proposal to another proposer. So it's pretty tightly held process. And then we would go through with our evaluation team. In this case, it'll be members from the city and members from DGR, and David Spiegler would be the group that would be doing the evaluation of proposals and scoring them.
Was David Spiegler the one that did the AMI?
Yes.
Similar process for AMR, correct?
Yeah, it'll be very, almost identical, other, that it obviously scored on different factors. And this time we'll have DGR involved.
It's really not that unusual a process. I mean, communities do it all the time. And they have requests for engineering. Madison, we did it a few years ago for engineering for the RD project.
And it's more common in other states. Other states don't do bids, they do proposals, and it's just South Dakota's unique in, every state's unique in how they go about procuring stuff for government contracts. But like, the NGPA, which is now Sourcewell, is in Minnesota, that's done on proposals. And they advertise for proposals and they get these proposals and they're good for multiple years. And so it's just different states have different processes. In South Dakota, this is the option outside of doing a sealed bid.
I think it's a good way to do it. We should be able to get something that we know is going to work for us as opposed to something that meets the specifications.
The one of the advantages is that with the sealed proposal is we've got a budget that we have to fit into, and we can negotiate with the proposers what we can get for that money, and then decide which one's the best for that money, rather than having to take the lowest bid that may or may not have everything that we want or the best that we want. And this gives us the ability, especially with technology, to get what's in our best interest by negotiating with the proposers.
We can reject them all if we don't. like
We certainly can reject it all and not do anything. If there's nothing binding in this, if we don't come up with a good proposal after negotiations, we would come back and make a recommendation to this commission that we do not accept any of the proposals. And then we'd go back to the drawing board. The alternative is if we have something that's really good, but might be a little bit over budget, is we'd have to come back and ask to take some money out of a reserve or out of cash to cover the cost of the proposal to get it done. So those are some of the options, below budget with a good proposal, over budget with a really good proposal, or below, either way above or below, but not anything that we want. So
Minimizing risks or surprises.
yeah, this, like I said, this gives us the option to, especially with technology, to ask questions. You try to put a bid package together and somebody bids something, but you don't know what it is. It's got a technology name associated with it, and you don't know what that is. You don't know what its capabilities are. This way, we get to have the chance to interrogate the proposer and find out exactly what they are proposing and make sure that that technology actually does what they say it's going to do. And that's one of the things that you don't get with the bid process. You have to take whatever. So sometimes you end up getting something that isn't necessarily as good as what you could get if you could have asked the question. So.
Thank you.
Any further comments or questions? Not hearing any. All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried.
The second part would be the approval to go out for request for proposals, to basically advertise and solicit proposals from prospective vendors. And so that's the one that would be opening, and it's in the packet. All the information is in the packet here for the proposal. That's what would be released to the public. And for proposers to get in a proposal by April 8th, by 2 p.m. This would be for a control system for the gen plant. The original control system was put in 2004. It was a computer-based system. It basically speaks to multiple different components in the gen plant. Those components speak different languages. Just as if, people speaking different languages, you have to have an interpreter. And so this would be to procure an interpreter and then have some graphical user interface that's computer-based and accessible from the internet, in a secure format, so that we can monitor and keep track of the gen plant outside of being in the gen plant. Right now, if you're not in the gen plant, you don't have any idea if there's an alarm going off. There's no reporting, there's no anything. And the thing could sit there and alarm for a week, basically. If it happened on a Monday, we check the substations every Monday. And if nobody was out there between Mondays, they could sit there for an entire week in alarm and nobody would know about it. And it's just one of those things that I think we can do a better job of maintaining and monitoring that plant. The other issue is that if you're out there and you need to run the plant like we did in Winter Storm Uri, and you're there as the only person there, if you need to go to the bathroom, there's no bathroom out there, so you have to leave the plant, and you don't have any way to monitor what's going on with the plant when you're gone. Not like that happens very often, but it has happened. The last thing, and this is probably the most poignant thing, the plant as it sits right now is a very manually oriented operation. You have to twist knobs, you have to look at gauges, you have to go out and physically do a lot of things. People from my generation anyway, that's not a big deal. I started out with knobs and gadgets and with, widgets and that type of stuff. Nowadays, most everybody's got a smartphone that, is better than anything that they took to get to the moon with. And they know how to operate all these graphical user interfaces that are computer driven. And if we are going to transfer the control of this gen plant from my generation to the next generation, we have to make it ready for that. And that's the other part of this that we're trying to do, is make the plant so that the follow-on generations can operate it without having to know every single knob to twist, every single button to push, and have to know all the manual parts of this plant. Now, it's still going to be a complex plant. There's still going to have to be smart people running it. But I think this takes a lot of the guesswork and a lot of the worry out of it, because you'll be able to monitor it, see it. And then we do have some things that we want to be able to track better. Fuel is one of them. We have a requirement to report fuel by unit every year. And right now, that's not an easy process. Just because of the way it was designed and the way that the engines work they got a tank that sits next to the engines that carries fuel. And then so there can be various amounts of that inside each engine, each tank next to the engine. It's hard to say how much exactly each engine used every run. So we do it annually, and we do it by an appropriation method where we look at how much each one consumed by Caterpillar's estimation, and then we apply that to the entire fuel consumed in the plant. Not exactly the most accurate method of doing it. So we want to get something more accurate because of the oversight that we get at that plant for Clean Air Act. It's something that, from a regulatory standpoint, I think we'd be better off if we had a much more accurate way of measuring how much fuel is consumed in each prime mover. So that's one of the other reasons. So those are all the reasons. I'm here for any questions. It's something that we've been working on and needed for probably going on 12 years. I think about 2008 is when the original computer program quit. And then if you had to transfer to a new computer, which over that course of time you lost the program. It was no longer functional. There was no support network for it.
Thank you, Fred. We have a motion to accept the request for proposal on the generator plant operation system update April 8th, 2022 to 2 p.m.
Make that motion.
Second.
Brett, what kind of budget do we have in
We had $250,000 that we carried over for the last 2 years. Some of that comes, I think, from a little bit of reserve that we put away, but it's, we've had it in the last 2 years and we carried it over again this year.
Got about $250,000 for budgeted for this.
As we said, Brad, how many people are capable of operating our plant right now?
3.
These simplifications, well, what's your best estimate?
As far as,
People being able to,
I think most anybody could operate it, you know, with a few, just a brief overview of how the program works. There's some things, I mean, there's some little quirks about the whole thing, but the way it was originally set up, there was logic built into the plant. And you had to come up with workarounds to defeat the logic to make the plant do what you wanted it to do. We hope to have all of that ironed out in this user interface, that you can select some of these things and it's not, the logic can be changed. One of them is the doors. In order to run the plant, the doors have to be logicked out as being open. There's a little L-shaped toggle switch that operates on a stud that's sticking out of the door, and it flips up and down, telling it whether or not the door is open. Well, during Winter Storm Uri, we got down to where it was 17 degrees below zero inside the plant. And we were starting to gel up our fuel in the tank outside, because the tank pumps the fuel through the system in the building and then pumps it back out to the tank. And we were pumping it into a 17 degree below zero building from a warm underground, and we were dropping the level, the temperature inside of our tank. We got a temperature monitor in the tank. We didn't have a way to lower the doors without faking the logic out. So we finally figured out that there was enough of a delay that we could lower the doors, flip the toggle back up before it sent the signal to the switch gear, and we could get the room warmed up. And then we were able to do that. Otherwise, if you close the door, the generator stops, because it's got to have this fresh air coming in, and that's a part of the logic. So there's a lot of these workarounds that you have to do, and without some sort of a user interface that can get you into that, and we put some of that in this proposal, is that we had to have some of that capability, and we're going to work with the proposers to make sure that we have enough capability so that somebody else can do it without having to go out, stand on a ladder and have 2 guys trying to actuate the buttons, because it got so cold the buttons would no longer work. You couldn't get the doors to operate anymore. So it was a challenge, but we did learn, and we did get it up. Once we got the doors closed enough, we got up to 68 degrees inside there and got the fuel warmed up and everything was good. But we were kind of nip and tuck there for a while, that we were going to gel up the fuel in the tank in the ground and have to stop production.
Still will have to be manned 24 hours a day.
If you have to run it, yeah, you'll still have to have somebody there. It'll just be that much easier to operate, and you can't see the temperatures of the engines or anything remotely. You have to go out there and walk by every single one of them. It's not a huge, it's not an unusual amount of risk compared to everything else that we do in the electric, but you're at more risk if you're out there if something were to go wrong with an engine and have that. So the less you have to be out around the engines, the better off, the safer it is. And so if you can have something that can tell you what the oil pressure, temperature, all those things, that the parameters are being measured already, if there's something to report that back to you inside the control room, you don't have to go out and look. Now you've got a window there, you can look out and see if there's smoke and all that stuff without having to go out there. Maybe just go out there once every now and then instead of having to be out there once an hour. During that storm, we did once an hour checks, went through and walked through all of the engines and looked for leaks. And we might still do some of that, but you don't have to stand there and sit at the gauge panel and wait for all the thing to scroll through to tell you all the information. You'd have all that there. So then you could just walk out, look for leaks and be out of there in a minute, instead of being out there for 5-7 minutes, standing in between the engines. They're 2,600 horsepower piece, and if something goes bad, that's a lot of kinetic energy to deal with.
Any other comments, questions? Not hearing any. All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. Thank you, Brad.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brad.
Item number 2, personnel. I guess I just had a question on Are we going on the basis of paying our electrical superintendent salary?
Yeah, the position is set up to be a salary position.
How did we come up with the 93, 350, 40? Means this was an hourly rate at what, 40 some bucks?
Yep, so we're basing it off of the hourly rates for some of our current employees, assuming that this person, not assuming, but knowing this person is going to be getting any overtime, and it's going to be compensated at a higher rate than the hourly employees. We want to make sure that this person is in fact making less than the people that they oversee.
And other question I had was a couple meetings ago, we gave 2 employees 5% more until we got this filled. So I don't see the taking that off
Yeah, those would be going back to their previous rates.
as a,
I'd have to look at that a little more.
From my understanding, we had them set to expire at the end of this month for the library positions. I don't know.
The library, you're correct, would expire at the end of February. As far as the electric one, the intent's always that once that position is filled, that they'd go back to their previous amounts.
That's how you know anymore.
That's the intent and that's what we will do.
so if this is approved, he takes effective date tomorrow. So
Yeah, I mean, and just by approving his, since he was one of the individuals that received that 5% increase for interim duties, it essentially goes away for that individual.
do I have a motion to approve the personnel?
Second,
Any further comments for discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Public comment. Oh. Copy. Do you want to do the announcements or do you want me to go through?
I can go.
Okay.
The petition for the mayor's position, those petitions have to be in by Friday. The next commission meeting, since we've moved to that first and third Mondays of the month, would be March 7th. Couple other items. The ASP program got a $27,000 grant approved. And we just received payment of that today. So that's exciting. Our website is scheduled to go live in the next day or two. We're waiting for confirmation that the servers have been switched over, but the website will be live in the next couple of days, and finding our ordinances and publications on there is way easier. Publications like that way better than our existing site.
Any other announcement?
I do have one. I want to publicly thank J Menace Manitou Equipments. They donated 1 pallet of quick dry, 1 pallet of line marker for the baseball and softball this summer. So I want to make sure we publicly thank them for that donation.
Any other announcements? Hearing, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. All in favor, signify by aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Have a nice evening.
It's the first one.